At the beginning of August last month, I was receiving a lot of information and a lot of messages about metamorphosis. I had no idea how relevant that information was going to be for the month of August. And at the beginning of the month, I was doing what I normally do, which is preparing my thoughts, preparing the messages and the insights that I had to share with you for the month. And what I was writing, what I was playing with, the ideas and the concepts that I was playing with this idea of metamorphosis, is that metamorphosis is a part of the process. And it's not something that we choose from the human level of awareness. What I mean by that is the caterpillar doesn't just say, okay, today I'm going to become a butterfly. Metamorphosis is an experience of moving beyond a previous form. It is morphing into something else, something new. And it is something that we don't choose actively from our human level of awareness. It is something that just occurs as a part of the process once we reach a certain point. And it's one of those ancient cycles that is intelligent and self-sustaining and self-regulating. And it inherently knows when it is time for the metamorphosis to begin. And not long after I was writing that information, I got really sick and spent basically all of August in bed with a fever. I had no other symptoms other than the fever. No explanation really for what was happening beyond the realization that what I was going through and what I went through in the month of August was a deep and profound metamorphosis. The question for September, and I'm just going to put it up front because I think it's one that we talk a lot about, but that I see coming into a very real physical experience. And that question is, how far beyond who you've known yourself to be are you willing to go? How big are you willing to allow yourself to be? How powerful and brilliant and magnificent are you willing to become? The irony, of course, of that question and of that statement is that you already are that. There is a level and an awareness of you, and I've just been calling it the ocean of self, this massive, enormous, boundless level of awareness that is currently rising up to meet us, that is currently in the process of becoming this new foundation that we stand upon, this field of self that is so beyond anything that I have ever experienced. And it is here, and it is supporting us, and it is beyond anything that I have ever, I can't even fully comprehend it. It's that big, and it's that massive, and that powerful. And it is as benevolent and compassionate as it is powerful and boundless. And it is putting us squarely in the driver's seat to decide, how big do we want to go? How limitless are we willing to become? And that sounds really wonderful. And it's fantastical in the ramifications of what that means. And it also means it's time to allow yourself to be fully expressed. It is time to move into radical self-expression. It is time to give in to the enormity of your brilliance. We can't hold back anymore. So I'm feeling better now. I'm coming back stronger every day. My endurance and my strength are slowly returning. August was one of the most humbling months I think I've ever lived. To be completely laid out and completely taken out by the physical transformation that I was going through. And you know me, if you've been listening to me for any length of time, I'm just skeptical enough that when something like this happens and the thought comes in and says, oh, well, it's the energy and it's the astrology and it's, it's this ascension journey. And the skepticism comes up and says, no, it's more than that. There's a physical aspect of this. I'm physically ill. And at the same time, I know that the physical manifestation of illness is informed by energy and astrology and the ascension journey. And a lot of what was happening for me mentally through the month of August, as I was just in bed, was this back and forth between what's happening physically, what does this mean for my body and my human experience, and what's happening internally, what's happening energetically, what's happening to my field of awareness. And it brought me to my knees. It broke me open in a way that I did not know was possible. And what has arisen as a result of this on the other side is this depth of presence that astounds me. The clarity and the wisdom and just the sense of knowing that I crossed a threshold and that there's no going back. And the question this morning, and I've been sitting with this information over the past couple of weeks. I've returned to my client sessions. I've returned to my group stuff, the spiritual entrepreneur support circle. We had our first 2 meetings in the month of August. Through the grace of spirit, I don't know how I managed to show up. And the message that is consistently coming through is that the time for holding back is done. The time for resistance to who we are and what wants to be fully expressed and what wants to be fully shared from that radical, brave, unapologetic place. It's time. We don't need permission. We don't need an invitation. And in fact, we're not going to get one. And the old programs of limitation, the old programs of persecution, the old programs of smallness, they're done. They're done. And the questions that I want to offer you, in addition to how far beyond who you've known yourself to be, are you willing to go? There's a couple of other things to consider this month. And it feels to me, just to weave in a little bit of what's happening astrologically right now, we have something like 7 planets retrograde right now, which is astounding. We have the Pluto in Capricorn, which is getting ready to switch back to Aquarius at the beginning of the year. We're entering that time of the calendar year when the acceleration really begins to occur. And I think September is a moment of a bit of a lull. We have Mars in Virgo, which is focus, funnel, get it done. The Pluto and Capricorn energy, to me, the way that I've been sharing, is it feels like the college RA, like the dorm RA, and she's got her clipboard and she's got her list. And these are all the things that you need to do to get right. These are the things that are non-negotiable. These are the things that must happen, because the metamorphosis that we are entering, and that I just came out of, because that's part of the deal for me this time around, is that I just go through things a little bit early so that I can then report back to you what I have found on my path as I've been hacking through the jungle of my experience, really figuring out what's going on. And the metamorphosis that is ready to occur, that we are in the process of beginning. It's a natural part of the cycle, and it's not something that we can actively choose. It is something that is happening, and our choice is, what are we going to do with this golden opportunity? And so some of the things to consider this month are what you are trying to preserve very well may be the thing that's holding you back. And for me, that showed itself once again through my practice. And frankly, I'm surprised that I'm creating this video. Because if you've been paying attention over the past couple of years with me, I've kind of gone back and forth with what I'm creating, how I'm creating, what I'm offering, what I'm, what my menu of services and events is. But this message feels so powerful and so profound that I had to share it. And the question for me was, what am I trying to preserve? And you may have seen that video that I shared at the beginning of August, the personal update, where I was just kind of at the end of my rope and just saying, I don't know what to do. The formula is broken. The juice is squeezed out of the fruit. There's nothing left, and I just don't know what to do. And I'll put a link here if you want to watch that video. It was a deeply personal share. And out of that video, what was born was this support group for spiritual entrepreneurs. And then getting sick. And not surprisingly, but kind of surprisingly, on the other side of this illness, I'm so grateful for it, because had I not been completely stopped in my tracks, I don't know if I would have become so acutely aware of this depth of presence, this massive field of self that is now here. It has arrived. And I believe that it really came in and began to descend around the end of July as we move towards the Lionsgate portal. And it is going to continue to deepen and strengthen and sort of structure itself over the course of the next few months. And the image that I saw initially was just that of a spider web. And it was very, very delicate and very fragile and very nascent. And it was something that we weren't ready to traverse yet, right? Just like a spider's web, the spider knows how to move through it. But nothing else can. Everything else gets tangled up and stuck and all wrapped up in the web. And I think that's where a lot of us have been. That's where I was during August, just a sense of like, just surrender, just stop, just stop. And I had a lot of time to think. And the question that kept coming up was, what am I trying to preserve? And mostly just out of a sense of, well, this is what I know. This is familiar. This is comfortable. This is, the formula. This is how I do it. But finally, after these past 2-3 years of my practice just imploding and being reborn and imploding and being reborn, I see that it was time to leave a specific mindset behind. And part of that, another question, sort of relative to what are you trying to preserve, is where are you being political rather than being honest? Where are you still trying to be nice or be liked or be accepted or be, the good person, the good human, the good wife, the good husband, the good daughter, the good whatever the role is? And it's time to let that go. Because what happens when we are stuck in a limited identity or a limited mindset, we are in the fragment. And the fragmented self is always something that we inhabit through the mind. It is the human perception of like, oh, well, I'm having money issues, or I'm having relationship issues, or I'm having physical issues. And those things may be very, very real in our experience. It's certainly not saying they're not happening, but the point here is that the fragment does not hold the solution. The fragment is the mindset of the problem, of the limitation, of the story of brokenness or smallness or whatever. And the fragment says, I can't do this. I don't know how to do this. This is a problem. I'm stuck. I'm broken. I'm scared. I'm, whatever the story is. And we all have those fragments. We all have those pieces and those mindsets that tell us what our limitations are. And we are defined by those limitations when we are in the fragment. It's a character. And just like in a story, a play, a movie, a script, that character has a very limited range of things that are available to it when it is in that belief system. Oh, well, because I'm this means I'm that. Because of this detail about who I am, that creates a very specific reality that is available to me. And so the fragment is not where the solution, it is not where the shift, it is not where the freedom lies. The freedom lies when we find the fragment. We acknowledge, oh, okay, wow, here's that story, here's that belief, here's that limitation again. Here's that identity of smallness and brokenness and disconnectedness. And we acknowledge that. We feel into that. We allow it and open it up. And then we move out to the outermost layer of ourself. We move to the highest level of awareness, to the deepest sense of connection, to the most expansive version of self, layer of self, the awareness of the entirety of self. And that is where the solution lies. That is where the truth is. That is where the medicine becomes something that we can understand. And so the fragment says, I don't know how to do this. I'm stuck. I'm scared. I'm broken. I can't do this. And the fullness of self says, you're right. You can't. But we can. The fragment can't create an experience of fullness. Just like the wave cannot create an ocean on its own. The small self, the fragmented self, could never experience fullness because it only knows itself as the fragment. And so just like we didn't really understand, right? When you're in your fragmented experience, you don't know anything other than that. And especially in the beginning of our journey, when perhaps we're not quite yet awakened or aware, we believe, well, whatever's happening is right here and that's it, right? Life's a bitch and then you die. And oh God, here we go again, just my luck. Oh, see, I told you, that just happens to me. Well, that's how it is in our family. That's how it is because of this biology. That's how it is because of whatever the thing is that we're using to fragment ourselves. What story, here is another question, what story are you telling? And is it one of fragmentedness? Is it one that breaks you apart and keeps you in a very small, limited, specific bandwidth of reality? Or is it one of fullness? Is it one of completion? Is it one of greatness? Is it one of limitlessness? So the fragment says, I don't know how to do this. And the full self says, you are right, you don't, but we do. And that's where this level of awareness comes in. It is a massive geometry that is here to support and to integrate us back into ourself. And it is so much larger than any story we can tell of brokenness or suffering or limitation. It says, I've got that. I understand where that comes from. I know that story, and it's not true. So this month, it's about what you seek, reclaiming you. Right? That's the Pluto and Capricorn. Is the Pluto and Capricorn energy says, I know what you want and I know where you're headed. I know the greatness of you, because Pluto and Aquarius is that future self. Pluto and Aquarius is that future self finally coming home and saying, okay, are you ready? Did you clean your room? Did you unpack all the stuff? Did you organize it all and let go of the stuff that you don't need? So now the future self that you are becoming is now a sustainable experience. I think one of the biggest tragedies that I see in the human experience is when what we desire begins to arrive, but we are not prepared. And it's overwhelming and it's too much and it's too big, and we suddenly now are like scrambling to get all the stuff done that we had an opportunity to do. Spirit wants us to get this. We are being given so many opportunities to really get it right. And getting it right just means getting right with yourself. That is your primary job in any lifetime, is just to get right with this. That's your purpose. First and foremost. Are you congruent with the fullness of all that you are? Are you aligned with your greatness, and how far beyond who you've known yourself to be are you willing to go? Are you ready to abandon those limiting ideas and beliefs and stories and identities? You have to be willing to die into that. You have to be willing to let that go. And it becomes a process of realizing how invested in our stories about who we are and what is and isn't possible we have become, because it's comfortable. It defines us. It tells us who we are. And it tells us who we're not. So Pluto and Aquarius is saying, baby, come on. It is in the chute. It is on the docket. It is coming. What you have been working towards is on the way. And are you prepared? Do you believe in the future vision for your life that you've been working towards? Do you, if it showed up today, would you be ready for it? It's one thing to want it. It's another thing to believe you can have it. It's one thing to visualize it and put it on your vision board and meditate on it and chant about it. It's another thing to live it. So what you are seeking is ready to reclaim you. It is ready to say, yeah, come on in. Let's do that. But are you going to resist it? Are you going to push back and go, oh God, I don't know, the familiar thing now. Now that I actually have to take the leap, the familiar thing is looking better and better. Maybe I do want that. Maybe I'm fine. Maybe I don't want that. Maybe it doesn't need to be that big. Maybe it doesn't need to be that grand. Maybe I could just have like 20% of it. Baby, that's not how metamorphosis works. The caterpillar doesn't stop halfway through. So this month, How far beyond who you've known yourself to be are you willing to go? Where is it time to be radical in your self-expression? Where are you holding yourself back by trying to preserve something that probably doesn't work anymore? And metamorphosis is not a choice, it's a process, it's an allowance. The caterpillar doesn't say, no, I don't want to do that. It just knows, oh, now I start weaving myself into this cocoon. And what I want to do here in a couple of minutes is do a little bit of energy work. So you can join me for that, because I want to call in this presence. I want to call in this energy. And I hope that you're able to connect with it and find a sense of it, because it is something that I see visually. It's rising up out of the depths. It is now becoming strong. It is now becoming solidified. It is now, the geometry is, gosh, I don't even know what the word is to use, maybe actualizing, in the sense that now it's not just this delicate web, it's actually stable. And now it can support us. And this is the new reality. This is the new platform of your life. And it is absolutely 100% here for you if you're willing to accept it. That's the trick with the free will universe. Is you have to be willing to say, okay, let's do that. That's what I want. Spirit can bang on the door all day long, but if you're not willing to open it, nothing will change. It can't. So the metamorphosis that is in process is deep and real. And all you have to do is allow it. To give in to it. Say, yes, okay, let's go. Because the path towards Pluto in Aquarius, the path towards your future self, this is Spirit saying, this is the path, come on. It may not look like what you thought it would. It may not be even remotely close to what you thought was going to happen and how it was going to unfold, but that does not mean it's not happening. It doesn't mean that it's not here. It just means we have to be willing to be brave and to die into ourselves and say, okay, strip it back, break it open, take it. Because what I'm finding is the depth of presence and the connection to this heart space and this deep, deep compassion. It's blowing my mind. It's blowing my mind. So what I'd like to do now, go ahead and get settled, is a little bit of energy work just to connect with this presence and this awareness. So this presence that I want to dance with is simply you. This is a layer of self that, from my perspective, is beyond what we have been able to access directly. And to me, that's part of the ascension process, is as the frequency of the planet and our individual and collective frequencies rise, then the expanded layers of self are also able to kind of descend. So it's like we kind of go up a little bit and then they can kind of come down a little bit, and we find a new place to meet kind of in the middle. This process, from my perspective, has been ramping up and intensifying over the past 18 months especially. And so this is nothing that you have to earn. This isn't something that you have to be worthy of. This is just a part of the process. This is a part of the metamorphosis. This is just you at a much higher, much clearer much more authentic, and it's this infinite self that has just been, I mean, for simplification's sake, it's kind of been out there. And we haven't necessarily been able to embody it. We've been able to access it and connect with it, but it's not something that we've really been walking around with, so to speak, in our pocket. And now we are at a place where we can connect with it and embody it, and it is a presence that is just a part of the day-to-day. And it is increasingly becoming more and more naturalized and actualized. And so this is a layer of self that is here. It is a process of allowing it to continue to unfold and open and reveal itself. It is just you. So this isn't anything foreign. This isn't anything outside of you. Excuse me. This is just a purer, clearer layer of self. It's like the atmosphere, right? All of the different layers of the atmosphere and how they change and how they shift and what they offer as we move, off of the planet, so to speak. Well, not so to speak, but physically when we move off the planet, the atmosphere changes, and these layers that we have access to reveal themselves. And it's the same thing as we become more unbound, as we become more liberated, as we free ourselves from those limitations of the story and the mind and the human perspective, we can embody more of the true self. So that's all this is. And all we're going to do is just close our eyes and breathe together. I'll have some instruction and some guidance as we proceed. You may want to make sure that your phone is off, that you're in a place that is, quiet and private, so you won't be interrupted. But we're just going to play with this. And my intention here is to open this up and to bring it into the room for you to then engage with in whatever way you're guided or inspired or curious to. And this is really about allowing ourselves to receive this support, to become aware of this presence, and to really fall into it. Allow yourself to be reclaimed by the truth of who and what you are. Allow yourself to be reclaimed by the future you've been working towards and envisioning and dreaming about. Okay? So, phone is off. Screensaver's off. I think we're ready to go. So go ahead and just close your eyes with me. You can get comfortable if you want to. Oh, and if you want to light a candle or bring in any sacred objects that help you feel more connected, you can do that now. You can pause the video and do that now. Finding a place, again, where you can relax and be fully comfortable and uninterrupted. And just find the breath. Just breathing nice and deep. Inhaling fully. Breathing as deeply into the torso as you can. Exhaling completely. Engaging that diaphragm to squeeze out all of that expired air. Just use that breath as a tool to slow everything down. To drop into the deepest part of yourself. And the visual cue that I like to use is we've been in the mind, we've been in the mental layer of understanding. And so it's like you have a pebble of focus. We're in the mind, so we've been holding that pebble up in the mental plane. So visualize you have that pebble in between your thumb and forefinger, and you just open your fingers and let it drop, bloop. And it gently floats to the bottom of the pool, coming to rest in the deepest parts of self. If you need a physical connection, you can just think of settling down into the pelvic floor. Just gently coming to rest. And for me, I find this connection to this layer of self through stillness and silence. When I take a moment to just notice the stillness, to acknowledge the silence that is always there. When I have the phone out of my hand and when my laptop is closed and all of the noise in the room has been turned off, and the stillness that is always present just rises to the surface. So breathe into that stillness. Allow yourself to become one with that silence. We're going to invite that ocean of self to reveal itself to you. It is a presence that is far greater than just a singular human experience. It is a consciousness of love, of compassion, of support. And it also honors your free will and your sovereign authority to choose and to decide. And just allow it to come into the room to meet you, to rise up from the depths of self and reveal itself. Feel this presence that moves in, and it says, whatever you have, the old stories, the old wounds, the old traumas, the old beliefs of brokenness and limitation and unworthiness, That's nothing. I can wrap myself around all of it. I am like the ocean. And no matter how big and how powerful the wave may seem, it still exists within me. So no matter how scary or triggering or frustrating that old belief might be, it is not larger than this layer of self. How far beyond who you have known yourself to be are you willing to go? Just allow yourself to be held and embraced by this energy. Just breathe. And when the old voice of fear or limitation or woundedness arises and says, I can't do this, I don't know how, you put your arms around it and you say, you're right, you can't. But we can. The solution does not lie in the fragment. The inspired action exists in the fullness of self. So pull that fragment close and reintegrate it. Allow it to collapse like a wave collapsing back into the ocean. And just allow yourself to be plugged back in to that field of energy that is the ocean of self. When you allow yourself to be reclaimed by that field, you are not lost. You are returned. just come back to the breath. Feel how deep and wide the breath can be. Allow that sense of expansion to simply become a part of the day-to-day. Allow the return to your limitless nature. And then find the breath again. Breathing in nice and deep as you come back to the body. Another nice full breath as you come back to the room. Back to this moment in time. Take a few more deep breaths. Give a nice big stretch. Whenever you're ready, come back. So my hope is that you were able to find at least a little bit of the resonance of that field of self. If you didn't, don't worry about it. It's here. And there's nothing you have to do. It's not about trying. It's just about, it's as simple as just stop holding your breath. Right? When I stop holding my breath and I allow myself to breathe, the oxygen is there. The breath is there. So it's really more than anything just a matter of allowing. So my hope for you for September is that you're able to allow yourself to move through this process of metamorphosis. That you can give yourself the grace of just giving in. Because this is just you. And this is the you that can and will support you to move beyond who you've known yourself to be, to drop those limitations and allow them to just be removed, collapsed, so that more of who and what you have always been can be revealed. I know that a lot of what occurred for me through the month of August was the physical release. That's a lot of what that fever was. It was just giving in and the physical release of all the stuff that I'd already been working through emotionally and mentally and energetically and in true form. Often it's the physical layer that is the final one that goes through the process of transformation and metamorphosis. I wouldn't say this is necessarily healing, although there will be healing aspects to it. It's more about transformation. Healing moves us backwards to a previous state. Transformation moves us beyond. And that's what this is. So I hope you have a powerful September. And my wish for you is that you can simply allow. Just stop holding your breath and let it in. Mwah. I love you. Take care.